Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this important side event on press freedom and human rights. My name is Mehman Hüseyinov, and I will be your moderator today. This event is organized by the Institute for Human Rights together with the Institute for Reporters' Freedom and Safety. Today we will examine the deteriorating state of press freedom and human rights, focusing on the systematic targeting of political prisoners and the bans on independent media outlets and non-governmental organizations in Azerbaijan. Today we will have three speakers who will share their expertise. First, we will hear from Igor, consultant at the Institute for Human Rights, who will shed light on the case of Iqbal Abilov, a clear example of how academic freedom and minority rights are under attack. Next, Zahra Kalandarlı, advocacy officer at the Institute for Reporters' Freedom and Safety. She will provide information on imprisoned female journalists in Azerbaijan. And finally, Emin Hüseyinov, director of Institute for Human Rights, will go into further depth about the broader crackdown on civil society and media in Azerbaijan. So we can start. Igor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Honorable delegates, guests. Today I will mainly speak as a friend of a person with whom we together graduated from the Belarusian State University, Faculty of International Relations, and have been close friends for more than 18 years. In May 2025, Iqbal Abilov was sentenced to 18 years imprisonment by Azerbaijani court. The sentence strikes at the heart of core principles of academic freedoms and minority rights protection. Let me tell you who Iqbal Abilov really is. He's an Azerbaijani citizen. He has lived in Belarus since early childhood. There he's been building an academic career. He taught students in the Belarusian State University. As an editor-in-chief of the Herald of the National Academy of Talish, he has dedicated his life to documenting and preserving the cultural and historical heritage of the Talish people. This is a distinct ethnic and linguistic group in southern Azerbaijan. His scholarly work involved collaboration with researchers across the region, driven by a genuine passion for understanding and preserving minority cultures of the South Caucasus, Iran, and Turkey. In June 2024, Mr. Abilov made what would prove to be a fateful decision. He returned to Azerbaijan to attend a family wedding. On July 2022, he was contacted by the State Security Service under the pretense that they need to return his previously confiscated passport and mobile phones. Of course, instead of receiving his documents, he was detained, transferred to Baku, and interrogated without legal counsel. He was then charged under the most serious articles of Azerbaijan's criminal court: high treason, public calls against the state, and incitement of ethnic hatred. But what's Mr. Abilov's crime? Conducting peaceful academic research on Talish minority and engaging in scholarly dialogue with international colleagues. The primary evidence against him was just a single Skype conversation with Professor Garnik Asatran, an Armenian scholar specializing in Talish studies of the Yerevan State University. In that brief exchange, Mr. Abilov merely inquired whether the website Free Talish was still active, to which Professor Asatran replied that the website had disappeared. There were no further discussions, no agreements, no cooperation. Two scholars have never even met in person. Yet this simple academic inquiry has been twisted into alleged espionage and secret negotiations with Armenian intelligence. His trial was conducted in complete secrecy. He was denied access to the case materials and denied any contact with his family. All requests for house arrest or communication with relatives were rejected. Today, he remains imprisoned under harsh conditions, and his only crime being his dedication to preserving heritage of his own people. This case represents far more than one man's persecution. It is emblematic of a systematic campaign to silence minority voices and criminalize academic inquiry. When a scholar cannot research his own people's heritage without facing treason charges, when international academic collaboration becomes grounds to espionage accusations, we witness the death of intellectual freedom. The implications extend beyond Azerbaijan's borders. If we allow such precedents to stand, we signal to authoritarian regimes worldwide that minority research, cultural preservation, and cross-border academic cooperation can be safely criminalized under national security pretexts. Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights is clear. The right to seek, receive, and impart information knows no borders. Article 27 protects minorities' rights to preserve and study their own culture. These are not Western concepts imposed from outside. These are universal rights that Azerbaijan voluntarily committed to uphold. As the UN Human Rights Committee emphasized in General Comment number 34, academic freedom is a protected form of expression, and when national security is invoked, the burden is on the state to show that any restriction is specific, necessary, and proportionate. Azerbaijan in this case has utterly failed to meet this burden. We call upon this Council to condemn Mr. Abilov's persecution unequivocally, demand his immediate release, and establish robust monitoring mechanisms for academic freedoms and minority rights in Azerbaijan. The international community must not remain silent when scholarship becomes sedition and cultural preservation becomes treason. Mr. Abilov's freedom is not just about one man. It is about whether we will defend the fundamental right to think, research, and express ideas freely. Thank you.
Thank you, Igor. Now I would like to give the floor to Zahra. She will provide information on imprisoned female journalists in Azerbaijan. Floor is yours.
Honorable delegates, today I would like to shed light on one of the most systematic and brutal campaigns against press freedom we have witnessed in recent years. As of today, Azerbaijan holds more than 40 journalists in detention, making it one of the most aggressive jailers of media professionals in the world. With over 400 political prisoners, including opposition figures, activists, and civil society leaders, we are witnessing not just isolated incidents, but the systematic dismantling of democratic principles and civil liberties. What makes this crisis particularly alarming is the deliberate targeting of women journalists. 9 courageous women currently languish in Azerbaijani prisons, victims of what can only be described as a politically orchestrated campaign to silence dissent and intimidate the independent press. Let me tell you about these women, because each represents not just a statistic, but a voice that has been silenced. Aynur Gambarova, known as El Gunesh, is a 50-year-old journalist with Meydan TV. Renowned for her critical reporting on government policies, she faces fabricated charges of illegal entrepreneurship and currency smuggling, carrying potential sentences up to 7 years. Aysel Umudova, 33, is a Meydan TV reporter who dedicated her career to covering human rights and corruption. She now faces money laundering and illegal entrepreneurship charges with possible imprisonment of up to 7 years. Aytaj Ahmadova, known as Tabdig, is a 32-year-old Meydan TV journalist who focused on exposing government malpractices. She faces identical fabricated charges of money laundering and illegal entrepreneurship, risking up to 7 years in prison. Fatima Movlami, she is 24 years old, is a freelance journalist who contributed to Meydan TV and other independent outlets. Detained on February 28, 2025, she faces spurious money laundering charges as a part of the broader crackdown on Meydan TV affiliates, potentially facing up to 7 years imprisonment. Kayala Agayeva, a Meydan TV journalist known for reporting on civil society issues, is accused of money laundering and illegal entrepreneurship with a potential sentence of up to 7 years. Elnara Gazimova, a journalist with Abzas Media, reporting on government accountability, faces charges of money laundering and tax evasion, which could result in several years of imprisonment. Nargiz Abzalamova, also affiliated with Abzes Media, is charged with money laundering and illegal entrepreneurship, facing similar imprisonment terms. And Savanj Abazova, known as Vagifkizi, is an Abzes Media journalist targeted with money laundering and tax evasion charges, risking multiple years in prison. And then there is Ulviya Guliyeva, known as Ali, whose case exemplifies the brutal gender-based intimidation tactics employed by Azerbaijani authorities. This independent journalist and former Voice of America correspondent was arrested on May 7, 2025, in connection with the so-called Meydan TV case. Despite having no formal ties to the outlet, she is charged with smuggling foreign currency. Authorities claim to have found over 6,000 euros in cash in her home, an accusation she categorically denies. If convicted, she faces up to 8 years in prison. But the charges are not the worst part of Ulviya's ordeal. During her detention at a police interrogation center, she was denied immediate access to legal counsel and subjected to physical violence. Most disturbingly, she was threatened with rape by law enforcement officers unless she provided passwords and access to her mobile phone and social media accounts. She is held in degrading conditions without adequate medical oversight or basic hygiene provisions. These women journalists face not only the same repressive tactics as their male counterparts, but also endure gender-specific abuses while in detention. Reports indicate that detained women are systematically denied access to basic hygiene products, essential medication, and adequate medical care. Some have been subjected to verbal abuse, invasive searches, and other forms of psychological and physical mistreatment designed to humiliate and break their spirit. These are not isolated incidents. These arrests followed investigative reporting into government corruption, public resource mismanagement, and human rights violations. The charges against them, currency smuggling, money laundering, illegal entrepreneurship, and tax evasion, are universally recognized as fabricated and politically motivated. Colleagues, we cannot stand by while such blatant violations of international law unfold before our eyes. Azerbaijan has voluntarily committed to uphold the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, particularly Article 19, which guarantees freedom of expression. It is a state party to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which prohibits arbitrary detention and guarantees fair trial rights. It has signed the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which obligates it to protect women from gender-based violence and discrimination. Yet every day, these women remain in prison. Azerbaijan tramples on these solemn commitments. Every threat of sexual violence, every denial of medical care, every fabricated charge represents not just a violation of these women's rights, but a mockery of the international legal order we have all pledged to uphold. The persecution of journalists, especially women, under false pretenses is not merely a domestic legal issue. It is an affront to this Council and to the principles upon which the United Nations itself was founded. We therefore call upon this Council to take urgent and decisive action, issue a strong and unequivocal public condemnation of the Azerbaijani government's politically motivated persecution of journalists, demand the immediate and unconditional release of these 9 women journalists, along with all other political prisoners in the country. The freedom to report, to investigate, and to publish without fear is essential to any functioning society. These journalists have committed no crime. Their only offense has been their dedication to the public's right to know. Their bravery, resilience, and commitment to the truth in the face of systematic oppression must not be met with our indifference. The severity of the situation in Azerbaijan requires more than expressions of concern. It demands action guided by principle, justice, and solidarity with those who have been unjustly silenced. Thank you.
Thank you, Zahra. Now I'd like to give the floor to Emin Hüseyinov, Director of the Institute for Human Rights. He will provide information about crackdown on civil society and media in Azerbaijan. The floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Emin Hüseyinov. I am Azerbaijani human rights defender. I'm based here in Geneva in exile almost 10 years. And today I would like to say for situation in Azerbaijan is quite dramatically unique. We never have such kind of situation even 10 years ago when its first level of crackdown against civil society started. Let me give you a short reminder what's happened in 2014 when President Aliyev, after his third presidential terms, decided to start huge crackdown against civil society. He arrested like lots of human rights defenders, lots of journalists, investigative journalists especially. I'm personally spent like 10 months in Swiss embassy in Azerbaijan when Swiss Ministry of Foreign Affairs provided me opportunities with a temporary refugee status, and 10 years after long diplomatic negotiation between Swiss government and Azerbaijani government, I'm able to leave the country and come to Switzerland where I'm received like political asylum status. But most of my colleagues not lucky like me. Like they are arrested, spent years in Azerbaijani prisons, and after when even European Court for Human Rights decided for all of this politically motivated crackdown illegal and obliged government to release all of these people, especially some of my colleagues which is arrested also today. It's like Anar Mammadli, famous human rights defender. Crackdown in 2014 started with his arrest because he's exposed electoral violations, and Aliyev decided to start like vendetta against civil society with his case and Ilgar Mammadov case. Today Anar Mammadli arrested again with the same fabricated charges. Imagine, the European Court for Human Rights already make decision very clear for all charges which is incriminated against him. It's politically motivated charges. Government supposed to release him. They released him, paid compensation partly, but now they arrested him again. It looks clear example. Even no matter how famous you are academic or researcher like Iqbal Abilov, or you are famous as Anar Mammadli, you will be punished. And today, compared with situation in 2014, situation is again worse. We need to look only to statistics. If in 2014 we have not more than 100 political prisoners. Today's numbers of political prisoners in Azerbaijan more than 400, and up to 40 of them it's media workers, up to 10 of them it's like civil society representative and human rights defenders. Imagine, I would like to mention some names. Human rights defenders, Rufat Safarov, which is arrested just day before International Human Rights Day when he planning to move to US to receive his award, which is like State Department decided to award him for his courage on defending human rights in Azerbaijan. And Rufat Safarov arrested second time again on politically motivated charges. Like lots of people, as like a researcher and human rights activist, Bakhtiyar Hajiev, he's arrested second time. He's Harvard alumni. Like all of them have completely fabricated charges against them. And imagine Harvard alumni received like charges with hooliganisms or very obvious charges which don't have anything with the current realities. Only realities is like the government of Azerbaijan decide to destroy completely and forever all outspoken voices, like especially from the civil society, independent media, and other institutions. Today we have more than 20 persons, which is government of Azerbaijan calls them for international search, like via Interpol, with the fabricated charges as well. these people, especially like bloggers and exile-based activists, which is criticize government of Azerbaijan from abroad. I think I don't have a time to mentioning all of these names, but some of them, like Vidadi Iskandarli, murdered in France last October, in October 2024, for his like criticism. Like today, government of Azerbaijan tried to use massive cross-border repressions against their opponents. No matter where you are in Western Europe or in the neighbor Georgia, you're able to punish. Special case, as like my colleague Zahra Kalantari mentioning, we have today 9 female journalists. They are not arrested only because they are journalists and investigated grand corruption. They are arrested in Azerbaijan, especially to deprive potential growing of female leadership in Azerbaijan. Because what is Azerbaijan? Like a country with 33 years of independence history, like former Soviet state, when we have only 1 year democratic elected government from 92 until 93, when former KGB general Haydar Aliyev came back to power via coup. 10 years after, he delivered his power to his son, to Ilham Aliyev, because his dad died. And Aliyev staying in power already 5th presidential term. He's changed constitution. He's appointed his wife to first vice president position. She's number 2 in state hierarchy. Even if Azerbaijan, member of the Council of Europe, OEC, and Azerbaijan is part of the European political communities, which is supposed to be like us respect European political values, democratic values, social and economical values, Azerbaijan denied to respect this. And today Aliyev prepared the floor for his wife, because one of the plan B, he planning to deliver his presidential power to his wife or to his daughter. And that's why they decide to open new kind of repressions, which is we never have before, repressions against feminists, female journalists, several female feminist activists also right now warranted by the Azerbaijani General Prosecutor Office, and they sent requests for red notice requests for the Interpol, and all of this happened just to keep political power as long as possible. And especially today, the level of repressions, Aliyev also correlates this level of repressions with a lack of international attention to Azerbaijan. For example, first, we always correlated when something going wrong in the world, like when situation in North Africa, in Libya, in Arab world, like Arab Spring started, Aliyev tried to push this civil society. When it's happened in Ukraine in 2014-15 with Crimea, he do the same stuff against Azerbaijani civil society. But today, it's very unique situation for Ilham Aliyev's regime, like world focused on issues, what's going on between Russia and Ukraine, what's going on between Iran and Israel, and he's just using momentum and opportunities to increase his illegal repressions against the civil society. And today, as I said, we only able to collect like cases of these 400 political prisoners. Civil society of Azerbaijan received like an unprecedented level of state repressions, but it's also another serious issues what has damaged us, like let's say support which is for example, U.S. federal government cut all support of the Azerbaijani civil society. Imagine, like, it's not only situation, dramatical situation with U.S. federal funds cuts only in Azerbaijan. We know for many of our colleagues have a similar problem. But with this situation, Aliyev also tried to use this momentum with President Trump's administration publicly said for USAID and all of their partners do this wrong stuff. Aliyev also tried to use momentum and say, for yes, we Azerbaijani brave law enforcement agencies also start this crackdown against USAID grant receivers, and all of this, I'm previously mentioning names, they are beneficiaries of this USAID and US federal grants, which is completely legal in Azerbaijan, but the government of Azerbaijan tried to using different charges with this money smuggling, with abuse of power, illegal commercial activities, etc., etc. So what we have today, what we need to urge international Azerbaijani government to implement all of their international obligations. And especially, I try to remind you, for just months ago, President of Azerbaijan participated on European Political Community Summit meetings in Tirana in Albania, when all European leadership decide to provide to Azerbaijan host country status for welcoming EPC summit in 2028. They decide, of course, to also provide these opportunities to Armenia for 2026, but my concern is Azerbaijan today, one of the worst country in Council of Europe and European political community area, with conditions, worst condition of the human rights situation, with the democracy, lack of this government and stakeholders accountability. And Azerbaijan receiving today, based between all of these international powers, and try to use this for their own profit. Again, Aliyev clearly understand for when he's quite good relations with Israel, he's have a quite neutral position in relations with Russian and Ukraine conflict. He supposed to do not have any kind of problem. But what we are afraid now, since like a situation in the Middle East between Iran and Israel, going on more and more bad scenario, it's possible to increase new kind of threats for situation with the state of human rights in Azerbaijan. Because if imagine like hundreds of thousands of refugees from Iran decide to run to Azerbaijan, what's supposed to happen? Like, did Azerbaijan ready for this or not? Azerbaijan is only single country in the world which is land border closed since pandemic, and until today they are closed. This is closing of the land border officially related with pandemic of COVID-19. But imagine it's 5 years after, when it's everyone opened their border, Azerbaijani president said, yes, we close the border for COVID-19 issues, but right now we have another threat. But still, according to the decision of the Azerbaijani Committee of Ministers, borders of Azerbaijan, land borders of Azerbaijan, closed for COVID-19 reason. And this decision extremely damaged like a millions of cross-border populations who lived in the neighborhood with Georgia, with Iran, or Russia. Again, situation with online freedom. I would like to finish with this. Like, we don't have if before we think for internet is quite free island for freedom of expression, today it's there also start to limit it, this island for us. Azerbaijani government start used illegally used, even sometimes without court decision. Online bans for all independent media in Azerbaijan. Sometimes they start to block like some famous bloggers, like even like for example Mehman Hüseyin is like famous Azerbaijani journalist and blogger with 2 million subscribers. And imagine they decide to block his TikTok account. TikTok account available, Mehman's TikTok account available in Switzerland, in all parts of the world, but not in Azerbaijan. It's like first case when Azerbaijani government able to target it like individuals. They start to use like a new kind of online surveillances. It's they previously used like software as Pegasus, which is prepared by NSO group, Israeli NSO group, but today they continue to do this with another tools. Lots of our colleagues who are arrested today, they illegally received data regarding their projects and use this illegally get documents in the courts against civil society representatives. Freedom of assembly and association, as again, I'd like to say this for, in Azerbaijan we don't have a foreign agent law, which is like with the same, which is named in Russia or Belarus or in Georgia, but we have a same and worse law, which is restrict like receiving grants from abroad. Most of arrested and jailed colleagues try to establish their associations, like Anarma Madli, for example, or Abzats Media, or any other human rights institutions. Government denied to implement judgments of European Court of Human Rights regarding the freedom of assembly, for example. They denied to simply register their non-profit organizations. And what these people are supposed to do, they are just try to use cross-border opportunities. They are registered NGOs, let's say, in Europe, in Georgia, opening bank accounts there, and operated via this cross-border financial and institutional opportunities. And government of Azerbaijan today punishes people for realize their fundamental rights. And all public activities in Azerbaijan is also strictly forbidden. Lots of, last my point is like repressions against civil society. Today, not civil society, political opposition. Government of Azerbaijan started huge crackdown also against their political opponents. Leader of National Council, columnist and oppositioner Tofik Yagublu, staying under already fourth politically motivated detention. He previously spent years in prison. Again, they are arrested him. They organized a hunger strike, and only after intervention of his family members, his pregnant daughter asked him to stop this hunger strike, and they stopped it, decided to stop, to do not stress his family members. But imagine, nothing happened, like all court observations, which is our organization and our partners organizations able to do, shows for arresting anyone with any charges is like very simple in Azerbaijan. Today, even it's super difficult to observe all of these politically motivated charges because government of Azerbaijan start to punish also observers. Another situation, dramatic situation with oppositional party, Popular Front Party. Imagine leader of political oppositional party, biggest oppositional party, former state secretary, Ali Kerimli, he is not able to receive his identity cards. The person staying in the house, everything around the 500 meters in the neighborhood, like no internet. Even if you're going to his dentist, like internet blocked in this area. He's always, the government, for the last 1 month, government arrested all of his 5 assistants and bodyguards. And with these trends, probably they will able to arrest him as well, because Aliyev super nervous with situation what's happened in Iran, and he tried to prevent all of worst case scenarios for him. I would like to stop here. If you have any questions or Q&A, please feel free to ask. Or
Thank you to all our speakers for their important contributions. We now have a few minutes for questions from the audience. Please don't forget to introduce yourself and keep your question precise. Yeah. Yes.
Human Rights House Foundation, thank you, panel. And indeed, this is an important issue for my organization. And it's good, Emin, that you raised the case of Anama Mugli. I think it's particularly important for us here in Geneva. His case, he was speaking on a panel at a side event that we organized at the 55th session in March of last year. That was a panel focused on the COP conference in Baku. He was speaking about Azerbaijan's environmental commitments and their own obligations at a domestic level. He's also the head of an election monitoring organization in Azerbaijan, as Emin rightly pointed out, having previously been a political prisoner more than 10 years ago. On return to Baku, just within a couple of weeks of speaking here in this room, in fact, I think actually in the seat Mehman, the moderator, is sitting in, just within a couple of weeks, he was taken off the street on his way to collect his son from kindergarten, put in in detention, and remains in prison to this day. For us, it's a clear case of a reprisal. His case has been raised a number of times in public communications via special procedures. So we're not just talking about something that is limited to the situation in Azerbaijan. The authorities clearly are also targeting Azerbaijanis outside of the country and those who come outside and return, and to engage with the United Nations and its human rights mechanism. So it's important that you raise these cases today. Clearly more needs to be done. Azerbaijan, of course, is not on the official agenda of the Human Rights Council, but I think it's really an obligation on all of us to ensure that the human rights situation in the country, and specifically in relation to some of these people who are in detention, in prison, and especially those for whom have sought to engage in an open and honest and human rights framed way with the United Nations, that we're continuing to remember them and to raise their cases and to push Azerbaijan for some form of rightful resolution. So I don't really have a question, but it's just to commend each of the panelists for your time today, for the importance of this meeting, and that we would all collectively be remembering our colleagues and, in some instances, friends who remain detained in Azerbaijan today. Thank you.
I think I can use like several minutes. Thank you, Matthew, for your intervention. So, situation with civil society of Azerbaijan quite unique, because today we need more support for our imprisoned colleagues. It's understandable for us, for many countries have a similar problem. But again, I tried to raise awareness from like-minded states. The states which have their also commitments and obligations within membership in OEC, with Council of Europe and European political community. My address is to these government representatives. If you give opportunities to bloody authoritarian ruler like Aliyev, welcoming like a climate change conference, biggest international event as like COP29, which Azerbaijan hosted in 2024, and we have today unprecedented post-COP repressions during the Azerbaijani presidency in UNFCCC. Why nobody asking him about political responsibilities? Nobody publicly advise him to not do this wrong stuff what he's doing for the decades. And again, European political community is kind of new institution which is include all EU member states and all Council of Europe member states. And sometimes my colleagues say, look, the same situation, worse situation happened in Belarus or in Russia or in Central Asian countries. What's happened, like, we just try to say for us is human rights violations unacceptable no matter where they happen, like in Central Asian countries or in Eastern Europe. But Azerbaijan has its obligations. And if country have a membership in these important European institutions, they're not supposed to be useful whitewashing tools for authoritarian rulers. That is important. It is important for like-minded states remind systematically about European obligations, and if nobody listening to them, they're supposed to use like international sanction mechanisms, which is we are seeing they are using these mechanisms against another authoritarian countries. But unfortunately, until today, we didn't see any kind of strong international pressure. And again, if war between Israel and Israel and Iran continued, we are afraid for next level of crackdown started. We are expected for, if it's situation like this continued, maybe we have next stage of war between Azerbaijan and Armenia. That is like what we are believe, because Aliyev is like very successful political opportunist. If you see for like everyone looking to the country, say, okay, let me use this opportunity, I can start another war. But he always using this trends. He can start something with the Sunni Zangezur called like a corridor. And lack of international attention and criticism gives some kind of carte blanche to Aliyev. When you see for nobody even alert him or ask him to do not violate his European obligation, he can continue. You can say for like, okay, if I accept, everyone in Europe accepted this, why I need to do not use it? He can use like your financial system. He provided like alternative oil and gas from Azerbaijan. He's tried to somehow minimize dependency from Russian oil and gas. And for on the opposite side, he's getting like every year more than 20 billions of dollars, which is received from oil and gas. And European companies, which has provided these assets for Azerbaijani oil and gas, never asking about responsibility. They even denied to support civil society institutions, and today, again, our address is to European countries. When we have a lack of US leadership in the world, more political solidarity is supposed to provide from EU member states and Council of Europe member states, countries which respect human rights, understand what is the importance of the civil society. They need to understand if we don't have like successful civil society in Azerbaijan, if we don't have political opposition in Azerbaijan, peaceful political opposition, sooner or later we will have like something wrong. What in other countries or in other worst case scenarios like in Syria or any other part of the world we observe, they will definitely repeat in Azerbaijan. If it's not any peaceful opposition or democratic transition opportunities happen, country have a completely wrong way and very pessimistic scenarios. And we are afraid on it. And again, we call to Azerbaijani government, release all political prisoners, and especially release first all female journalists, human rights defenders, bloggers, and journalists, and start real dialogue with their own civil society and democratic institutions, and respect all of the values, respect the rules, respect all of obligations and commitments in front of the United Nations, Council of Europe, OECD, and other institutions.
Dear friends, thank you for your attention and participation in this important discussion. Today we have heard testimony about serious violation of fundamental rights protected under international law. The right to freedom of expression. These cases remind us why the work of this Council and the broader UN system remains essential. We encourage all member states and stakeholders to continue monitoring these situations and to uphold the universal human rights standards we have all committed to defend. Thank you very much.